Climate change is the greatest environmental challenge that humanity has ever faced. In 2024, we encounter new climate extremes, unprecedented heat waves in southern Europe, devastating wildfires in Australia, and severe flooding in South America, displacing thousands of people and leaving them homeless. The war in Ukraine also intensified a humanitarian disaster, as well as a worldwide energy crisis, while the conflict in Palestine increased global instability and suffering. UN's General Secretary Antonio Guterres stated recently that no country and no economy are immune from a climate crisis. Yet, scientists keep saying that we're not doing enough to reduce our catastrophic impact on the environment. It is now widely accepted that human activities have changed the climate. But why now? What has changed in the last century? The number of people in the world today has doubled compared to 50 years ago. With increasing numbers in population, we can no longer afford to use the Earth's resources in the way that we have been. However, population growth does not tell the full story. The consumption of materials and the fossil fuel economy, mainly in developed countries, are also part of the problem. It is in these countries where we need to minimize our use of resources and where industries must start transitioning to a net zero economy. There is a difference between weather and climate. Weather is what we experience every day, whereas climate is the sum of all weathers over a certain period for a region or the planet as a whole. The Earth's climate has changed throughout history. In the last 800,000 years alone, there have been 8 cycles of ice ages and warmer periods. The majority of these climate changes are attributed to very small variations in the Earth's orbit that change the amount of solar energy our planet receives. While the Earth's climate has changed throughout history, the current warming is happening at a rate not seen in the past 10,000 years. Human activities, especially emissions of greenhouse gases from burning fossil fuels, deforestation, and land use for agriculture are the primary drivers. Since the late 19th century, the average surface temperature has risen by 1 degree Celsius. The world has been reluctant to recognize the climate crisis for several reasons. Climate change is occurring on a global level. It has been hard to see it happening, and people are used to dealing with problems at a local and national level. The Earth's atmosphere is composed of nitrogen, oxygen, argon, and other gases, including greenhouse gases. They are small in proportion, but they have an enormous effect on the planet's temperature. The main greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and halocarbons. These gases increase the Earth's temperature by creating a greenhouse effect. As the amount of greenhouse gas emissions has increased through human activity, the protective layer around the Earth has become thicker, like a big woolly blanket. Less gas is escaping, and this is causing the planet to warm up. CO2 is increasing by burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas, which humans use for electricity, heat, and transport. Deforestation releases carbon dioxide and reduces the number of trees able to capture CO2 from the atmosphere. Finally, solid waste also emits CO2. All these emissions have resulted in CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere being 40% higher than when the Industrial Revolution began in the mid-18th century. Carbon is a chemical element and one of the most important components of all life on Earth. Carbon looks very different in its many forms. A diamond is made of carbon, but so is the graphite on your pencil and the charcoal on a fire. Carbon dioxide is something you breathe out, but it is also the gas most responsible for climate change. From our perspective as humans, it is important to understand that carbon is the basis for life on Earth. CO2 flows between the atmosphere and organisms on Earth, and it is released or absorbed. A carbon sink accumulates and stores carbon for an indefinite period of time and therefore removes CO2 from the atmosphere. Forests are carbon sinks, as trees and plants extract carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through photosynthesis. Oceans are considered to be the main natural carbon sink, absorbing approximately 50% of the carbon emitted into the atmosphere. Ideally, the carbon cycle should maintain the Earth's carbon concentration, helping to move carbon from one location to the next and keeping the carbon levels in the atmosphere stable. However, due to human activity, the carbon cycle is changing, and we're releasing more CO2 than the carbon sinks can handle. Let's talk about the possible consequences of climate change. Food production is at risk due to extreme heat, droughts, and flooding. Warmer conditions lead to more pesticides, making growing situations more difficult than they currently are. This is resulting in food shortages as basic crops like cereals are becoming difficult to grow. Water covers 71% of our planet. The amount of greenhouse gases that humans are putting into the atmosphere means that we're changing the chemistry of the seawater, which affects what can grow and live underwater and therefore our food chain. Climate change causes sea levels to rise, meaning coastal communities will have to move elsewhere. With the global population set to increase and drinking water only accounting for 1% of water on the planet, we will have to manage our water resources far more efficiently. Buildings and infrastructures will risk collapsing due to extreme temperatures. Whole ecosystems are at risk of collapsing, including oceans, forests, and the soil, which will result in the extinction of many species. Soil erosion from intensive farming methods leads to soil degradation, which means crops will be difficult to grow and soil will be washed away in landslides. Human health is also at risk. We're already seeing the health impacts of climate change through increased exposure to extreme temperatures and weather events. There is an increased risk of transmission of diseases and deaths from exposure to air pollution and heat. We need to change how we live our lives to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. Whether we allow the average temperature to rise by 1 or 3 degrees will decide the fate of thousands of species and billions of people. As there is now an awareness of global warming for nearly 3 decades, the UN has been bringing together almost every country on Earth for global climate summits called Conferences of the Parties. Some important events that have taken place over time include the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which was agreed in 1992, and it was the first international treaty to fight climate change. The Paris Agreement was signed in 2015. It is a legally binding agreement committed to limit average global temperatures to increase by 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels, preferably 1.5 degrees. And in 2021, the European Commission adopted a series of legislative proposals setting out how it intends to achieve climate neutrality in Europe by 2050. Ireland is not immune from climate change impacts. In October 2023, the storm Babette brought record rainfall to the south of Ireland, leading to significant flooding in Middleton, County Cork, and Rosslare Strand in County Wexford, amongst others. Middleton was particularly affected by this extreme rainfall. The floods caused a lot of damage, with 680 properties affected. A study conducted in 2024 directly linked these events to climate change. County Wexford has also seen drastic erosion on its coastlines with the increased level of storms the county is experiencing. One stretch of beach has become very vulnerable to erosion. During Storm Kathleen in April 2024, up to 3 meters of cliff fell into the sea. A group of houses developed less than 2 years before are now out of commission because of erosion, and concerns have increased about the safety of other houses in the area. In addition, sea levels around the coast are rising, with half of the Irish population living in the coast of the island. Climate projections for the next century in Ireland indicate changes in wind speeds and storm tracks, increased river and coastal flooding, water stress for agriculture, and negative impacts on human health and well-being. On top of that, the government has declared a biodiversity emergency. The Irish government established the Ireland Climate Action Plan, which includes the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 20% by 2030 and net zero by 2050. Currently, Ireland is one of the highest emitters of greenhouse gas emissions per capita in the EU. To achieve these targets, future regulations are to come. In Ireland, the main greenhouse gas emission sources divided by sectors are as follows: agriculture 37%, transport 21%, energy industry 14%, and residential 9%. In 2022, only 11.6% of Ireland's total land area was covered by forestry, the second lowest in the EU. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, the total greenhouse gas emissions in Ireland are expected to reduce by 50% in 2030, but no drastic reductions have been made so far. To identify how we as individuals can adopt changes to our routines and habits to assist climate action, we must acknowledge the top polluting industries worldwide, and some of them might surprise you. On top of the list is, of course, the fuel industry. So a top priority for governments, companies, and individuals should be to reduce their use of fossil fuels. The fashion industry accounts for an estimated 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions. This is one of those hidden polluting industries where individuals have a big role to play. We can avoid fast fashion at all costs, visit second-hand shops and repair your garments, and purchase quality clothing that will last for years. You can also aim to buy your garments from a sustainable fashion brand. Agriculture and food retail are also on top of the list. Later on, we will look at the devastating effects that food waste has on the planet. Transportation and construction are also amongst the biggest polluting industries. While large corporations and governments have a big role to play in reducing greenhouse gas emissions globally, there is no denying that we as consumers also have the power to change our purchasing habits and support those industries and organizations that are making a concerted effort to reduce their impact on the planet. We all have a part to play in the fight against climate change, and it is our collective actions that will make a difference for future generations. Collective climate action has the potential to significantly enhance community relationships, as working together towards a common goal fosters a sense of unity and purpose. We have come to the end of this lesson. I would like to encourage you to complete the activities on the workbook.